basically, this originated during the COVID outbreak, and particularly during lockdown, when everything seemed to be changing, and I think it did to some extent. The world changed over that period of time in some way. And I remember that I was sitting out in our garden at the time, and I was working on something else entirely. And I kind of drifted off the way you do. The sun was shining, and it was middle of the afternoon, and hadn't had enough coffee, so I drifted off, and I found myself half asleep asking this question: why does a tarot deck, a traditional tarot deck, have to have 78 cards? Why does it have to have 4 suits and majors? And of course I knew why it had to have suits, because it came from the playing card deck, and most of the things that we know about tarot, the history of tarot, can be traced back to cartomancy at different periods of time and to different traditions that gradually came together to form this very rich structure that tarot still has. And I thought, well, who am I to question that? But I sat there and I thought, all right, so if it's not going to have 78 cards, if it's not going to have 4 suits, what is it going to have? And I made a list. And honestly, I still don't know exactly where that list came from, but it changed very little. I ended up with 60 cards, and I got rid of the suits, so they're all trumps, they're all majors for this, and I added new things along the way, and this was inspired partly. So here's the Fool in his new guise. Stepping out into the world, with the clouds inside him rather than outside him, with the whole universe spaced out before him. And I remembered what Eden Gray, a very excellent writer about the tarot, wrote in the 1950s, saying that tarot was based on the journey, and that it was the journey of the Fool. And I like this idea. I've always liked this idea, and I started thinking about it again, and I thought, well, the Fool in a certain sense represents us all. He's the one who sets out on his journey, having no idea where he's going, completely innocent, not knowing what to expect, what he's going to see, what he's going to encounter. And so that in a way, and please, I do not mean this insultingly, we're all fools. We're all fools at the beginning of our lives. We set forth without knowing what lies ahead for us. We begin to formulate ideas, we create our lives around us and out of the circumstances of our living. So if the Fool is on a journey, what does that journey look like now? And how is it different from the journey of the traditional tarot, which, we're looking back to the 14th century. And I thought, well, first of all, you look at the cards from those periods. They're very complex, they're beautiful, they're elegant, and they're very powerful, but are they immediate? And are they especially immediate to us today? Now, I've done 13 decks of various kinds, including very traditional tarot, like the Arthurian one, up to more wild and wacky ones, like the one that Charles and I last did on the Goblin Market Tarot, based on the Christina Rossetti's amazing poem, which we did with fun in mind, didn't we, more than as much as anything?
We did. It was hugely fun.
We had a laugh. We had a laugh, absolutely. So, following all this line of thought, I decided, first of all, that we wanted something simpler. I thought, I'm putting tarot back to 0 and starting from there, reset. For a long time, it was called the Reset Tarot, and everybody hated that. So it came up, and Kathleen came up with the title for it in the end. And of course, it fit perfectly because it is exactly a new journey. And what I did to show this really clearly in the book that comes with this, I wrote 2 stories. In one, I told a version of the Fool's journey as going through the traditional form of tarot. Just each of the major cards and each of the suits that he encounters, what they do, what they mean to him on his journey. And then I wrote a second one following the same set of cards from this deck, which were very different. And I should say also that these include all of the traditional majors. but no suits, right? So what made up the rest of that list that I came up with were new things like hope, tradition, history, belief, all kinds of very basic principles that everybody has to have in their lives to live by. And so what I hope I've done here in giving the Fool his new journey is to give him something that speaks to us today. And yes, I'm not saying traditional tarot doesn't. Please don't think this is not an attack on ancient traditional tarot. I'm not saying it's all rubbish, don't do it, get mine instead. Though of course I'd like you to. But I'm just saying that here's another way of looking at it that seems to fit better into the present time in which we're living, and which simplifies the iconography of it, if you like. And this is where Charles comes in, because I came to him with this crazy idea, and he didn't go, rewriting tarot, outrageous, go away. He went, let's have a look, and began to produce the wonderful pictures that you will be seeing, and which are, I think you'll see in every way, very different. Yes, you would recognise, you look at the Emperor and the Empress and you'll recognise them, but they're still very different. I mean, how did you approach them?
As an artist, I tend to be rather overcomplicated and convoluted. And the request from John to, can we simplify it down? Really get it to the bare bones. That was quite a challenge, especially when I'm presented with a title like, let's say, history. Now, how in the hell do you do history in a card? Simply. Luckily, my little strange brain sort of, and hand, I think, comes up with it. And so we had lucky first strikes quite a lot.
A lot. I mean, there was almost nothing that I didn't like.
But other times, John's incredibly sweet and polite about this. But I could tell by the tone of the voice, yes, it's great. I said, okay, got it. Say no more. And so sometimes one went through
very rarely,
dozens.
actually. Most of them I just went, perfect, thank you, next.
Yeah, but it was an interesting challenge to do with, as opposed to the Goblin Market Tarot, which was great fun for me because it was little men with pointed heads, and it was I sailed through that, I think, quite quickly.
You did, yeah. Fairly quickly with this one too.
No, it took, there was a lot of painstaking, God, is this right? Because what John has done is, in a way, is quite important. It's very important. He has turned the tarot upside down, and that is bound to create controversy, if not anger, I think, with some of the more.
I have had a few
people.
Abrupt and rather unfriendly reactions, should we say? But on the whole, people seem to like the idea. And one of the things that really amazed me, being since we're a bit ancient, is that the ones who seem to like it most are the younger people. And I know that part of that is because they tend to like everything to be simpler and easier in its approach, shall we say, which is quite understandable, because to spend several years studying tarot in order to get to the point where you can make a reading with it for either for yourself or for others is not easy. So it's been nice that, as my agent is always telling me, at your age you've got to work really hard to appeal to the younger generation. So, without having to work too hard at all, we seem to manage to do that somehow. And I think that's a tribute to you as much as anything.
Well, pure bloody luck, really.
Probably
Actually,
that.
you know,
Probably
the,
that. Yeah.
that we got a nice reception from.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? Canada or America?
Yes, I think yes, we did. Yeah, people have
Yeah.
just said, "Well, we love this. You know, this is so easy." Just
Yeah.
looking over the shoulders of, I think that we had one of the distributors for the publisher was, showing these at home, and his teenage family came in and was looking over his shoulder and going, "These are amazing. Can we play with them?" And really getting excited by them, which was very good to hear, certainly.
Actually, I suppose they're not scary, are they? Whereas I think
Probably
if
not.
you're
No.
talking about young
No.
people and whatever, some of the imagery of the classic.
Yeah.
I think you're thinking of the Crowley Tarot.
Oh, yes, indeed.
They're quite sort of whoa. I mean, they're brilliant. They really are. But I think one was trying to cut out all of that.
So the
melodrama.
the layers of meaning that have been added over the years, and which are fine. As I said, I repeat it, that I'm not trying to say classic tarot, throw it away, you don't need it anymore, because obviously it's incredible stuff and it's rich. It's rich because it's had all those layers within it. So although I think when you look at this first, you may think, well, where's all the symbolism? It is actually still there. It's just a bit more hidden and a bit more subtle, perhaps, than some of the more detailed versions that we have out there. So I'm really curious to know. I mean, I'm curious to know from you, who are the people who love tarot and are going to buy tarot and hopefully buy this one, what you think about that. I mean, do you think I'm incredibly daring and foolish to even think about changing the direction of something as ancient and noble as this, or do you think maybe it was okay to have a go at it?
I'm no scholar, but the tarot, as when you're talking about the tradition, etc., the 14th century, does it really, not in its form that the Rider-Waite pack, or it got sort of fixed in that.
To some
really
extent.
Not that long ago, and that becomes the. I shouldn't be talking about this.
No, you should. But I mean, the further back you go, the further back you go, you start getting to things like the Minchiati Tarot and one or two others like that have how many cards?
Minchiati has 97.
97. There you go. You see, so.
And the Bolognese has 62.
Right.
So it's not so strange.
So it's not
Regional
so strange.
Italian tarots are very various.
Absolutely.
Yeah, especially the Sicilian.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
I do think things move on and things change. We shouldn't be rigid in tarot like everything else in life. I'm curious to know how you interpreted the meaning of each card that came to you. Were you channeling the spirit? I presume you were channeling the spirit.
I honestly don't know the answer to that. I mean, as I said, I wasn't thinking about this even. I was working on another deck entirely and nothing to do with this. And I just found myself asking this question. Why 78 cards? Who says we have to have 78 cards? Can we not have 72? Or, as you say, we can have 90-something, and we can have 80-something, 60-something. But after that, then I just found myself writing down this list. And very little changed. I mean, we have things like hope, and that's something that we all need. Tradition, because if you turn your back on tradition and history, you lose something really important. And we do this so often, we dismiss things in the past because that happened a long time ago. What's it got to do with me? But we learn from those things. This is the whole meaning of tradition. We learn from that. I don't need to say that to this group, but I wanted to try and find a way that we could put in things that were missing. And you'll notice, if you look through these, that some of the things that are covered by the suits are included in these cards, but now as majors. So it's like I've boosted them a bit. Originally, I was going to end on the world, just as all traditional tarots recently have done. And then right at the last minute, a little voice in my head, whatever's voice it was, said, no, it's bigger than that. It's not just the world, it's everything, it's the universe. So the last card in the deck is now the universe. And that was an interesting one for you to draw. But you did it, I think, at least.
Well, I hope.
For me, anyway.
So, yeah.
They might not agree, but I think it was.
No, but I think images come out in the same way as John was describing how he writes. Very often you're presented with, come up with something for the universe, boom. And simply, that's. If I was allowed to do my own thing, I'd make some fantastically huge convoluted thing. But no, we want it simple in the card so you can see it there. And stripped of all the drama, really, just present the idea.
And it really works. I mean, something like the future, for instance, one star in the sky in the distant future. You can't see this, but probably from over there, but you will get to see it eventually. And it says something. It says something about that. When will be the last star? Oddly enough, I had been doing some work on a deck involving the She, the fairy beings, and again, I had just finished. In fact, the publisher had already gone to press with the cards, and it was too late. But right at the very end, they said, listen, the future. Yes, one day you'll look up at the sky and there will be one star. And I wanted to know more about that, and they did say a little bit more, but I couldn't even include that as a card because it was too late for them to print another card, so we just put it in the back of the book. And it might have been something of that came to me, I don't know. As I said, I'm not abdicating any claim of having done this. My creativity came in to make it what it was to some extent. Charles's creativity came in to give it a body, give it a shape.